Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday was announcement day of the latest Hearthstone adventure called One Night in KARAZHAN, and as I have promised, we will take a deeper look at the cards announced so far. Before we will glance at the cards, some quick facts about the adventure first. One Night in KARAZHAN is the fourth Hearthstone adventure and will launch globally on August 11th. It will contain 45 new cards, 4 wings, and each wing will cost you either 700 gold or $6.99. As in the past, they will release 1 wing per week, so the whole experience will take 4 weeks in total. A new addition to this adventure is the inclusion of a prologue mission. This one is not a full wing, but a single boss, and it will be totally free for everyone to test out, as well as getting 2 cards. At the moment I'm recording this video, Blizzard has revealed 7 cards in total so far. I will now talk about each one of these cards, but keep in mind that the strength of some cards might differ, if some of the remaining adventure cards that are unknown right now might have synergy effects with the cards. Let's start the video with the only new spell that was revealed yesterday, Firelands Portal. Firelands Portal is a new mage spell that costs 7 mana, deals 5 damage and also summons a random 5 cost minion. Blizzard already confirmed that there will be a total of 5 portals in the adventure, so the Firelands Portal is only the beginning of some crazy spell action. Solely 5 damage for 7 mana would be really bad, of course, when mage already has a fireball that costs 4 mana for 6 damage. The key factor to judge the real value here is a random 5 cost minion. In the following I have built all available 5 drops in standard into an overview picture and analyzed the possible outcomes you might get via the portal. As you can see, the overall value is pretty high and you rarely get a really bad minions out of it, while there are also super strong stuff for the mage in the slot. Cards like, for example, Doomguard, Azure Drake, Corrupted Healboard, Earth Elemental, Halazil, Leroy, the Nexus Champion Tharad or the Summoning Stone will work greatly with the overall mage game plan. In general, you should expect to get stats of about 9 out of a 5 mana minion, but also losing out on some of the effects of a few minions. The average stats alone in combination with the 5 extra damage that can either hit the face or minions are surely enough to make this card a pure pick with the value it provides alone. You can expect to see the card popping up in many mage decks, most likely only 1 copy per deck though. The 7 mana slot is already greatly taken by a Flamestrike or Archmage Antonidas in mage, so I'm not seeing it a double copy out to include in every deck. Contrary to this, you will see the card a lot in Arena. It is a common card that is way too strong in the Arena with providing both damage and board presence. Expect to see them in a vast majority of decks there, and it's literally a bad design decision by Blizzard to leave the card in the common slot when they could easily push them into higher rarity as well. Mage is already the best Arena class forever, pushing great cards into the common slot will only increase his favor. Next card is the Ivory Night, a paladin minion costing 6 mana for 4/4 stats and a strong battle cry. You can discover a spell and after that you will also heal your hero for the amount the spell you are choosing costs. I would put this card a small margin above the old healing bot and a strong addition for paladin decks focusing on the mid to late game. The healing bot is a 5 mana 3/3 card that will heal you for 8 when he is played. The Ivory Night is 1 mana more for another 2 in stats, but also gives you a spell in hand that might help you out even more than the probably more health that the healing bot provides. You can choose the spell you are getting, which increases the chances that you can get the right one in a specific situation. The healing is a nice side effect, but not the main reason to include the card in the deck. With the Knight costing 6 mana, there's also a high chance that you can play the spell in the same turn you play the Knight. Consider a situation against a Zuluk player where you drop the minion, discover a consecration, heal for 4 and then clear the board. That is some good stuff. The minion should also work good in a deck like the Murloc 1-turn kill paladin. It will increase the chance that you're getting a 3rd or even 4th anything can happen, while you're also increasing your overall healing potential. Overall, Ivory Night should improve the mid to late game paladin decks, and it might be enough to pull the deck back into tier 2 territory. Next we have the Enchanted Raven, which is a vanilla beast druid minion for 1 mana with 2/2 in stats. It is the first vanilla 2/2 minion that will see a release in the Hearthstone card game, and that for a good reason. The stats for this minion at the cost of 1 are extremely good. Enchanted Raven is able to trade evenly or favorably with every 1-drop, but on top of that he will also be able to combat a lot of the 2-drops in the game. If this wouldn't be already enough, the card's value increases further with the addition of the Beast Tribal. Enchanted Raven will improve the already decent Beast Druid deck even more, and time will tell whether this is enough to boost the archetype onto tier 2 again. The strongest start with Enchanted Raven is of course a turn 2 Mark of Yashari. This spell will buff the minion to a 4/4 on turn 2 and also gives you an additional card draw. Prior to the Enchanted Raven, the early game of the Druid always falls a bit off in comparison to the really strong mid to late game. The Raven can change this circumstance, and it's entirely possible that the card also finds its way into some of the non-Beast Druid decks to combat early aggression in combination with Living Roots. Otherwise, there's not much to say here. It is a solid 1-drop for Druid without any drawback and will definitely see play. Next we have our first Rogue card, the Ethereal Peddler. Rogue is struggling at the moment in Standard to keep up with the more prominent classes, so decent cards in the adventure would have been very nice. The Ethereal Peddler is unfortunately not that type of breakout card that can help Rogue much. In fact, that's baffling why this specific card is a Rogue card and not used for the Priest class, where it could have been a really great addition to the already functional Steel Priest deck. The Pedlar is a 5 mana minion that has decent stats of 5 attack and 6 life and a battle cry that will reduce the cost of cards in your hand coming from other classes by 2. The stats are in line with vanilla minions, so no surprise there, so the effect is the additional extra that makes class cards stronger than their neutral counterparts. The problem with the card is not that the effect isn't interesting enough to not play this card, but the proposed archetype is mediocre at best, and a card with decent stats won't change the fact that you won't find much success with it. You currently only have a very limited amount of cards on Rogue that can work with the Pedlar, namely Undercity Huckster, Burgle, Gang Up, Shifter Cirrus, Lorewalker Show, Grand Crusader, Nefarian and the Nexus champion Zerath. Out of these cards, half of them aren't necessarily pretty great at all. There's no reason at the moment to build a deck around the card. That sometimes might work, but it's a weaker rogue deck overall than the rest of the possible rogue decks. Furthermore, the effect only triggers as a battle cry, so you need the cards you want to reduce in your hand in the moment the Pedlar is played. How likely is it that you're getting some great stuff out of, for example, an Undercity Huckster on turn 2 or 3 and then keep the card instead of playing it when you need to? And if it's not good, you don't want to play the card anyway, even with a 2 mana cheaper price tag. It doesn't make much sense to me, and I'm pretty sure that the deck as well as the card will not see much play at the moment. Following up is the Hunter common Kindly Grandmother. For 2 mana you get a 1/1 with Death Rattle that will summon a 3/2 Big Bad Wolf. The card and also the Big Bad Wolf are beasts and therefore synergize very good in Hunter decks with cards like the Houndmaster or Kill Command for example. You have to wonder who is designing such cards. First they let cards like the Haunted Creeper rotate out of Standard because they were apparently very strong early on, and then they publish new cards that are nearly as good as the Creeper again. Getting one stronger minion instead of 2 smaller ones weakens the card a bit in comparison to the Creeper because it does not interact as well with cards like the Knife Juggler or Leok, but the card is still very good and you get stats of 7 for only 2 mana if your opponent isn't running any silence cards. Silence is at the moment not well represented in many decks, so while Blizzard is nerfing all the silence minions, cards like the Kindly Grandmother are increasing in value. Some might argue that the card is too slow for a hunter, but you shouldn't forget that you can drop the minion on turn 2 and then on turn 3 push at an abusive Sergeant or Lance Carrier to go with. This will most likely kill the majority of 1 to 3 drops your opponent can put on the battlefield, while you still have a newly summoned 3/2 Big Bad Wolf on the board. With those strong stats, there's not a single 2-drop against the Kindly Grandmothers not trading at least evenly, so there are definitely a lot worse minions you can push out on turn 2. We will now be looking at the last 2 revealed cards, both legendaries and both with some interesting mechanics. First off is Barnes, a 4 mana neutral minion that has attack of 3, 4 life, and with his battle cry he summons a random minion as a 1/1 on the board. Even if you would get the worst possible minion without any special effect, we are looking at a solid stats of 9 for 4 mana, but Barnes will shine in decks that can push out his true value. In the right decks, this legendary will be excellent. I'm calling it right here that the card will not only see play, but there will be decks that will be around Barnes and specific combos. The amount of possibilities with the cards are endless, and I can just cover the surface of what is all possible. Firstly, Barnes can be used in well-crafted combo decks that are building around single minions. Let's say you want to run a Malygos 1-turn kill deck. Now imagine you play an extreme deck with only Barnes, Malygos and a lot of spells. Playing Barnes will then guarantee you to get Malygos, and you can push extremely high spell damage out. A Malygos Make deck, for example, is able to play the Barnes on turn 8, get Malygos and then push 26 damage with an Ice Bolt and double Ice Lands. You only need 4 cards for a nearly safe kill, and that is insane. The same goes for spell-based rogue decks for sure. It will be excited to see what decks will emerge around the card here. Another possible site of operation for Barnes are various Enzu's Death Rattle decks. Those type of decks are running mostly Death Rattle minions that have great effects when they die, and therefore it is not too bad to have them as a 1/1 on board. Think about a turn 4 Sylvana, Tyrion or Anup Arak on the board. Just wow! Your opponent definitely will not be happy about it, while you might get a huge tempo boost and also increase the value of your Enzus. Really not too shabby. Furthermore, we shouldn't forget that every minion out of Barnes is a possible silence target. Silencing the minion will vanish any effect on it and will also undo the life and attack changes, so it will get its original stats back. Getting a Ragnaroth on the board, silence it and you have her 8/8 instead, for example. If you're running a rogue deck, you can simply just shadow step the minion, bring it back to your hand and then play it normally. Lastly, I will just leave a small combo for you to think about. Playing Barnes into the Old God Yashari Rage Unbound will leave you with 3 minions for 4 mana on turn 4 that might give you stats and effects of 10 mana or more. Absolutely fantastic. The card has so much potential and it's definitely one of the most interesting ones revealed. Last but not least, we have the second revealed legendary, the Curator, a 7 mana 4/6 minion with Taunt. When you play it, you will draw a Beast, a Dragon and a Murloc from your deck, but it is not necessary to have all 3 types of tribes in your deck to have a working effect. The stats are a bit underwhelming for the mana cost. On the other hand, the effect might be good enough to get his card to work in specific decks. It is one of the few more or less direct search cards in Hearthstone and will in fact come in handy when you, for example, need only a specific dragon to have a working combo. A Malygos rogue player might be relieved when he doesn't need to wait until the last card of his deck to finally see his Malygos and finish off the game. With this in mind, the Curator will improve the strength of some potential combo decks. But he is not only working in decks where you're specifically searching for some cards. Getting 3 cards for 7 mana and a more or less solid taunt body is a great value distribution, and even only playing a Dragon Beast hybrid deck should be enough to consider this card as playable. I would expect to see him to be played in Reno Logs and Beast Dragon Ramp Druid decks. Overall a good card, but you need to have a purpose for him. Therefore not many decks can and will run him. And that's the conclusion for today's reviews of the new One Night in KARAZHAN cards. When more cards will be announced, I will do more card review videos, so if it was helpful, you might want to hit the subscribe button and don't miss the next episodes. Also, if you have different opinions about some cards, just comment below. I'm eager to hear your thoughts about the new cards. Until then, have a nice day, guys.